Testing. Is everyone's mics working? Give me a yay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks,
Sorry about the
Sam.
wait. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sam. Okay. Good evening and welcome everyone, and thank you for your patience as we were trying to deal with our technical difficulties. This evening is not an is not a decision-making forum. It is the briefing on the agenda for the Ordinary Council meeting, which will be held next Tuesday, the 24th of February 2026. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to ensure that comments are respectful to the Council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in the public gallery. And please note this meeting is being live streamed. Yes, it's all working. Okay, great. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Item 3 is announcements, and there are none this evening. Item 4 is attendance, and the Chief Executive Officer has provided an apology for this meeting, and we have Kim Lay, the Director of Corporate Services, sitting in his place. Everyone else is present in the chamber. Item 5 is disclosures of interest. Is there anything to disclose, councillors? Councillor Pettaway?
Yeah, just make one small declaration of just impartiality. One of the deputies tonight is known to me and has been for many years, so just want to make that, but I'll stay in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Sosowski?
Thank you. My declaration is for item 10.3.1, the Ivanhoe Reserve Playground petition. My house is in close proximity to that reserve and I live on the same street as that reserve, so I'd like to declare a proximity interest, so I'll leave the room for that item.
Thank you. Councillor Black?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My declaration is in relation to the deputations given tonight. I know some of these deputies due to my work as a councillor, but it's impartial and I'll stay in the room.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. We'll then move on to item 6, which is deputations. So this evening we have 4 in-person deputations, and I will explain how the process works. Each person who is presenting a deputation will be invited to come up to the microphone and speak for up to 5 minutes. As we get close to the 5 minutes, I'll let you know so you can conclude your deputation. Once you have finished, the councillors may have some questions for you. So the first deputation is in regards to item 11.1. Notice of motion, Councillor Sutherland, proposed change of day for Annual Australia Day Citizenship Ceremony and Awards. And we have Pearl Halupka has requested to speak in opposition to the motion.
And I have an image to put up.
Hopefully that's working too. So we'll just see.
Otherwise, I'll show you on my phone.
Just give us one moment and we'll try to get it up for you. Okay.
Here we go. Do I turn that on and off or just?
No, just, it's fine.
My name is Pearl Halopka. I'm a Balladong woman. I also have Czech, British and Welsh heritage. I'm a citizen of the City of Bayswater. This is a pastel artwork that I did in response to the bombing attempt at the Invasion Day rally at Forest Chase last month. You can see a video on my social media which explains how I interpret the image. For the sake of brevity, I won't go into that now. I will be meeting with Police Commissioner Cole Blanche next month to gift the artwork to Waypole in thanks. It is the people who accuse Aboriginal people of being divisive who are being divisive. The people who tell us to move on are the ones that are stuck and are unable to move on. There is a shift happening around the world. As a collective, we have reached maximum saturation of cruelty, and the human world is about to have a seismic shift back towards humanity and groundedness. It is a common consensus that it's inevitable that the date of Australia Day will change again in the not too distant future. Why fight it and be on the wrong side of history? Speaking of history, It wasn't until 1935 that all Australian states and territories used the name Australia Day to mark the 26th of January. And it wasn't until 1994 that the 26th of January became a public holiday across the nation. Another date that's interesting is January the 1st. It marks the Federation of Australia in 1901. May 9th commemorates the opening of the first federal parliament in 1901. And I'm not going to go into the history of why January the 26th is not the preferred date for most people from the Aboriginal nations within Australia. We all have technology at hand to educate ourselves and about this topic for ourselves. It's exhausting to be expected to educate people about our concerns unremunerated, which I can never say easily, person by person ad infinitum, on social media, at the local pharmacy, on public transport, in the workplace. I myself have done voluntary work for the City of Bayswater. I was on the Reconciliation Advisory Committee. I've also provided weaving workshops for the elderly of the city on a voluntary basis. When a motion was put forward to thank me for my contribution to the City of Bayswater, Councillor Sutherland voted against it. Be strong in your own agency and take a pause, take a breath, and make a decision that doesn't injure your own humanity. And if people have questions for me, I'd just like to say I have a statutory appointment, and if anything is inappropriate, I won't discuss it.
Thank you very much for your deputation, and I will ask if there's anyone with any questions. No? Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is in relation to the same item, and we have Troy Mead has requested to speak in support of the motion.
Good evening, Mayor and all present tonight. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Through the Chair, my name is Troy Mead. I'm a proud resident of the City of Bayswater and have lived in this community my entire life for 54 years. I've been a ratepayer since 1999. I stand before you tonight to voice my support for the return of the Citizen Ceremony to Australia Day on the 26th of January. I'm a proud Australian, I'm a husband, I'm a father of two, a business owner. I consider myself a committed and contributing member to the community. I have supported in many ways over the years. I played club level rugby for Perth Bayswater, a rugby union club, for over 15 years. I represented WA on 3 separate occasions on national tournaments. My family's connection to this country runs very deep. My great-grandfather served Australia in the First World War in Gallipoli. My grandfather served in the Second World War at the Kokoda Trail in New Guinea. Like many Australian families, we are proud of this history and the sacrifices made. There are several reasons why I believe holding the citizenship ceremonies on Australia Day is important. First, it's a symbolic significance. Australia Day marks the beginning of modern Australia. For many, becoming a citizen on this date connects with new Australians to share a national story. Second, celebrating of our national identity. It's a day where we recognise values such as democracy, freedom, respect, equality, citizenship, and citizenship's at the very heart of those values. Third, community recognition. As a national public holiday, Australia Day brings communities together. Holding ceremonies on this day allows new citizens to be welcomed in front of their community and properly celebrated. Fourth, a sense of belonging. For many, receiving citizenship on such a significant national day creates a lasting emotional connection to this country. And finally, tradition. Councillors across Australia have long held citizenship ceremonies on this day. Continuing this practice maintains consistency and civil tradition. I also acknowledge that for some Australians, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people, the 26th of January represents a deeply difficult part of our history. I'm not here to debate that point, but I will say that we need to stop being divisive, divided, I should say. We are one people, we are all Australian. Let's find ways to acknowledge our history while coming together as a community and celebrating what unites us. Thank you for your time and allowing me to have my voice and to be heard on this important issue of citizenship ceremonies in Australia. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation, and I'll just see if there's any councillors with a question. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next deputation is in relation to the same item, and Georgia Johnson has requested to speak in opposition to the motion.
Thanks, Mayor. My name's Georgia Johnson and I live in Bayswater. And yeah, my deputation is also on 11.1. There are so many ways this sorry motion can be improved. It can be withdrawn, it can be let to lapse, it can be postponed, or it can be amended. So obviously what we're talking about here is not changing the date of Australia Day. It's how our City of Bayswater holds its annual awards and one of many regular citizenship ceremonies, noting that only a fraction of our new citizens choose to do or are able to have their citizen ceremony in January. And I'll also note that in my generation growing up, Australia Day wasn't a thing. It wasn't a national holiday, or it wasn't a flag-waving festival of nationalism. It's not a long-standing tradition. We can choose and change the way we celebrate. I think if you're going to talk about listening to all the voices in the community, I'm pretty sure that First Nations voices are due a bit of weight on the matter of how our city acts on Australia Day. I was here when this item was discussed just 2.5 years ago. There was recognition of its sensitivity. There was a deliberate process over several months with the Reconciliation Advisory Committee and community consultation. That's not included in this motion. What I heard from the Aboriginal members of the Reconciliation Advisory Committee when we discussed it, from both local folk and stolen generations, was very clear. The dates after January 26 were the dates to celebrate, as we are permitted to do so. We heard that January 26 and the days leading up to it were days of hurt and sorrow, and afterwards was the time to come together to celebrate together. Our community and our formal council positions strongly support reconciliation, and the Uluru Statement from the Heart. It's out in the foyer at Local Design. I request the council listen to that voice and continue its leadership in our community. This notice, so opportunities to amend to include this item does not, this item reference the currently being formed Reconciliation Advisory Panel. Maybe postpone, maybe don't do it. It's really dud timing. The Reconciliation Advisory Panel has not been formed. And if you cared about walking together in reconciliation, this would be a really terrible thing to bring to its first meeting. There are others who have spoken and will speak to the timing more eloquently than I can at a time where racial hatred is still very raw. I think we heard a bit of that from Pearl, and there's a national conversation about social cohesion right now. This is an issue that matters in Bayswater more than anywhere, more than almost anywhere. Our Bayswater community values reconciliation and is keen to learn and listen. We are here in one of the only 2 West Australian electorates that voted yes in the referendum on The Voice. When I was door knocking on this issue at the time, I heard so strongly from people across the northern suburbs, recent migrants, particularly those from China and India, about how important listening to and respecting Aboriginal voices was to them, reflecting the importance of place and belonging as they too reflected on it in their new country. January the 26th, if nothing else, is an opportunity for us to listen and to learn, and for our council to show leadership. So next week, if this comes up, think about what you can do. Withdraw it. Let it lapse. No one needs to second it. This is a conversation we don't need to have. Postpone it. Think about it and find a time when this can be a respectful, considered conversation, when it's only been in place a few years. Amend it to include consultation with the community and with the Reconciliation Advisory Panel. Or there's always a lazy option. Remember the slogan? If you don't know, vote no.
Thank you for your deputation. I'll just see if there's any questions from councillors. No. The next deputation is in relation to the same item, and Georgina Kerr has requested to speak in opposition.
Thank you, Georgina Kerr, Bedford. When this topic was previously debated at Council in March 2024, I was present for the debate. I believe 4 of the current elected members were. The mover of this motion was not present at that meeting, and the 4 new councillors were not present in the public gallery. It was a lengthy debate, and I'm disappointed to see a motion presented today reversing the previous decision of council. There are 3 main reasons why I'm not in support of this motion, and none of them actually concern my personal view on changing the date of Australia Day, which is, of course, as a previous deputy mentioned, a separate matter for the federal government to consider. First, community consultation. Prior to the March 2024 decision, community consultation was undertaken on changing the date of the citizenship ceremony and awards. The response was not decisive either way. 47% supported retaining the ceremony on 26th January, 44% wanted it moved, and 9% thought either option was fine. So there's no clear mandate either way. Why then reverse the change when it has only been in effect 2 years? Particularly since the years that we've had are the ones where 26th January fell on a date that the ceremony could then only be held on a weekday. Over the next few years, the opportunity to hold the ceremony along with any community event on a weekend may change public opinion. If I could suggest an alternative, it is that further community consultation be undertaken in another 3 to 4 years, when people have had a chance to get used to the change and experience the opportunity for weekend ceremonies and associated events. Or we may find that within that 3 to 4 years, the federal government takes action and changes the date of Australia Day itself, making this back and forth a pointless exercise. Secondly, this goes against the express recommendation of the Reconciliation Advisory Panel. We all know that Council is not bound by the recommendations of advisory panels. However, in this particular instance, there is significant reputational risk to the city. If this motion passes, the community representatives on this committee and the wider community cannot be expected to have any faith that the city is actually committed to reconciliation and closing the gap. There are many things that are not within a local government's power when it comes to reconciliation. Here's something that clearly is. It has no financial burden upon the city either to be guided by this recommendation. Thirdly, let's talk about trauma. As I'm sure we all know, and is mentioned in the officer's comments on this motion, recently a 26th January rally in Perth was subject to an act of terrorism. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but this is a further re-traumatisation of a group of people that is already subject to significant trauma. I work with traumatised people for a living and have some understanding of how trauma rewires the brain. One thing you are taught very early on in any trauma-informed training is to avoid re-traumatising the traumatised. Supporting this recommendation at this time, this year, so soon after a terrorist attack, is piling trauma on trauma for a significant subset of our Indigenous people. Please, councillors, when you are considering your vote on this motion, I ask you to do 2 things. First, speak with the community representatives on the Reconciliation Advisory Panel, even if it's just by email. Ask them why this matters to them. Second, spend 30 minutes reading about intergenerational trauma as it relates to Indigenous Australians. There are some really good resources out there. It's a really complex issue, but it is something that you can get a grasp on in a relatively short amount of time if you use the resources that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. I'll see if there's any questions. No, thank you very much. Okay, so councillors, we've received 13 written deputations tonight in relation to item 11.1, and these have been provided to councillors and published on the city's website, and I'll take them as read. I'll move on to item 7, which is questions on agenda reports. And councillors, I'll ask first if we have questions in relation to the item that was subject to deputation, 11.1. Any questions on this item? Councillor Pittaway.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions to ask. Just bear with me because I don't have the internet working here, so I'm just trying to re-establish my email. Okay, so just a question for the officers from their recommendations in the motion. Does the city officially recognise Australia Day on its annual civic and events calendar? And if so, are officers aware of any current or proposed plans to remove or cancel Australia Day from the city's calendar?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd have to take that on notice. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Several, if that's okay. Prior to the 2023 council decision to move the citizenship ceremony away from Australia Day, are there any council records of credible threats, serious security incidents, or threatening behaviour associated with the citizenship ceremonies when they were previously held on Australia Day?
I'll go to the director. I'll go to the acting CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, this was prior to most of the directors and the CEO joining the City of Bayswater, but we can take your question on notice to actually confirm if there are any records.
Thank you. Third question, if there were no threats or incidents recorded prior to 2023, can the officers clarify how their recommendations are linking the Bondi incident in New South Wales and the more recent Invasion Day rally in Perth to the holding of a citizenship ceremony on Australia Day? And specifically, what is the connection being drawn between these unrelated events and a city-hosted citizenship ceremony?
I'll go to the acting CEO.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The references in the report are to highlight general risks that can exist with any event and the risk management that needs to be applied. I don't believe there's a specific linkage between the Bondi event, the Bondi incident, and citizenship ceremonies. It's speaking about event risk management in general.
Yeah, it was mentioned though. Does this reasoning imply that any large public event held by the city inherently carries a comparable risk of such incidents? And if so, should council then consider cancelling or restricting all major events due to perceived or hypothetical threats? For example, the Avon Descent Finish Line Festival involves recreational use of the Avon and Swan rivers. Now, given the cultural significance of the rivers and the Waggle spirit in the Noongar tradition, is this event considered culturally sensitive? And if not, how is this risk and sensitivity assessed differently to Australia Day or citizenship ceremonies? And should the city also consider cancelling such events out of respect for Indigenous traditions due to potential opposition from activist groups?
I'll go to the acting CEO.
Through you, Madam Mayor. There were several questions in that question. If I can respond generally, that risk management is a part of preparing for any event that the city hosts, and if there were risks of such significance that we felt it would be in the best interest of community safety to cancel an event, we would bring that in front of the council to have that conversation.
And, sorry, a couple of last ones. So immigration and citizenship are currently prominent topics in political and public debate at the moment. Does this mean that citizenship ceremonies themselves, regardless of whether they are held 3 days before or after Australia Day, now carry an elevated perceived risk? And how does the council propose to manage these risks proportionally across all civic functions?
I'll go to the acting CEO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can link this back just to general risk management principles that should be applied to any event. And if this is something that staff consider as part of the broader context setting when they look at citizenships, then they need to take that into consideration when they do their event risk management.
Finally, I just wanted to sort of ask how these sort of risks are categorised in the council and what constitutes a credible threat, and how any cultural sensitivities are weighted across all city events so that we're making decisions that are sort of balanced.
I'll go to the acting CEO.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm personally not across the risk management process that has been applied to events at the City of Bayswater, but I can take your inquiry question on notice and we can provide a response.
Any other questions on this item, councillors? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, the deputation raised a question about that Bayswater was one of two cities that voted yes in the 2023 voice referendum. So this might not be a question specifically for the city, but do you know what the percentage of people that voted yes for that was?
Oh,
I know it's not exactly a Bayswater question, but it's an interesting start.
do we take that on notice?
Madam Mayor, we would need to take that on notice and do some research to see if we can find that figure for
No,
council.
Just a
Can I
follow-up.
just-
Sorry, no, councillor.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up. Did the fact that Bayswater voted yes in that referendum in some way impact the vote later that year for the date to be moved?
I believe the referendum on the voice, which is a separate matter
I know.
entirely, was held after council's decision to move our citizenship ceremony.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Latta?
Thank you. I'm just wondering if the city could tell us how many citizenship ceremonies there are in a year?
I'll go to the director.
Through Madam Mayor, I believe there's 6, but happy to provide more
So,
details.
Councillor Latta, I believe for this year, there may be 10 scheduled.
Okay. Is there an average number of new citizens every
I think
year?
it varies between, each ceremony varies between 50 to 70.
Okay, thank you.
I may be off with the 10, it might be one more or one less, but it's generally once a month. And I know that there's a couple of months where we don't have any scheduled, but that can change at any time. Yeah. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the city send feedback forms to those who participated in citizenship ceremonies? Those who received their citizenship, do we get event feedback from those participants at all?
I don't believe so, but I'll go to the director, but I think the answer is no.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We staff are present at those events. We do listen to people. We don't send specific forms, but we are open to feedback. And generally, I haven't seen any feedback come through recently in my time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the rest of the reports. No councillors indicated any questions on any of these, so I'll give an opportunity to ask now. If there's any items that councillors have questions on? No? Okay, if that's the case, I will close this agenda briefing forum at 7:40 p.m. Thanks, councillors.